Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome Lord Geoffrey Archer, best-selling author, former politician who has sold, I believe, over 300 million copies of his books worldwide in 115 different countries and 14 different languages. I'm delighted to welcome this evening Lord Geoffrey Archer.
First time I addressed the meeting here was 50 years ago, and you couldn't get in the room. Now, the point is, I'm getting very old, and I was only asked to sign 5 books tonight, 1 for a grandmother and 4 for parents. So I said to my wife, I know what I'm up against at 84. So I hadn't decided today, when I was coming up, to talk to you about books or about politics. So I'm going to ask you a question to start with, because it helps me guide the lecture. Talk. Who wants to go in the House of Commons? Oh, that's not, wait, get your hand up. You worried to up. 1, 2, how about this side of the room? Yes, 1 at the back. Good. Anybody over here? And 1 over there. Good, good. 4, 5. What about you, Mr. President, you worm? Aren't you going into anything? Yes. Oh, took you long enough, didn't it?
I had my hand up the whole time.
Oh, you had your hand up. And who wants to write a best-selling book? Oh, 1, 2, 3. Oh, the politicians lose tonight, Nick. You've lost tonight. When I sat in the Oxford Union as a child, I wanted to be Prime Minister. But then almost everyone who goes into politics can't see much point in going into it unless you're going to actually do something. And I entered the House far too young. Warning, warning, warning to those who put their hands up, far too young. I entered the House at the age of 29, which was bad. I will tell you 3 people who came to me, whose names you will know, and I begged them not to go in the House until they were 40, until they'd done something else. And that was Sajid Javid. I told him not to come in until he was 40. Nadeem Zahawi, don't go in until you're 40. Kwasi Kwarteng, don't go in until you're 40. And they all obeyed me. And they've all had, well, all 3 became Chancellor of the Exchequer. Mind you, in the present Conservative government, you can do that for 6 weeks and go on to another job. So I went into the House at 29, wanting to be Prime Minister, as those 3 all wanted to be Prime Minister, and made a frightful mistake through my own stupidity. I invested in a company called Aquablast. I put everything I had into it, and I borrowed even more money because the vice president of the Bank of Boston told me it was a winner. And I was naive and stupid enough to believe that if you were the vice president of a bank, you wouldn't be lying or wouldn't be cheating. Silly old me. And I lost everything and had to leave the House of Commons at the next election, so I did 5 years facing bankruptcy. I didn't have a job. My wife at the time was teaching at Oxford. She was teaching at Somerville College, Oxford. She was teaching chemistry. And Trinity, here in Cambridge, offered her the chance to be the first woman to teach at Trinity, a very great honour, and gave us a lovely flat in the Grange Road, and I lived off her for 3 or 4 years. So we had the lovely flat and her salary, and bankruptcy never happened, thank God. I sat down and wrote a book called Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less. Now, I want to tell you about success, chaps, because you're all looking forward to it, you bunch of worms, and your chances of actually getting your head above the ground aren't great. You may look at me like that. The first book sold after 17 publishers turned it down. Yes, 17 publishers turned it down. And it sold 3,000 copies. And my wife quite rightly said, "Don't you think, Geoffrey, it's time you went out and got a real job?" But I battled on, and the whole life changed for me when I wrote a book called Cain and Abel. Literally everything changed overnight. It went to #1 on the New York Times, #1 on the London Times. It's now on its 132nd reprint, having sold just over 47 million copies. And that was the most remarkable change. And I couldn't have anticipated that. I couldn't have known that would happen. And so settled down to a career in writing. And then Margaret Thatcher rang me up and said, "I'd like you to run the constituencies." The chairman, Norman Tebbit, was in the bomb at Brighton and badly injured, and his wife nearly killed, and I'm afraid remained in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. And she said, "I need someone on the ground to run the general election." And I had the honor and privilege of running the general election for that very remarkable woman, who must be to you now, looking at you round in this room, with one or two exceptions, must be part of history. Whereas I had the honor of working with her and remaining friends. I worked with her for 11 years and remained friends right through to the end. And she was followed by John Major, who asked me to stay on in the same job, running the constituencies. And here's a strange thing for you to all be thinking about the next election, and I will answer questions on it, but here's a strange thing. When there was about a year to go to the next election, and Margaret had gone, and John Major had taken her place, and John had appointed me to the same position, I thought we'd lose by 30 or 40. If you'd asked me, if I'd stood here, and you'd said to me, "Geoffrey, what do you think the election result will be?" I'd have said, "We're going to lose by 30 to 40, and we won by 30. So strange things can happen in politics. I actually don't think they're going to happen this time. I think this time we are going to lose by 30 to 40, but I want to put one thing in your mind. The press, and it could happen. It happened in Canada. It could happen. We could be wiped out. I accept that. But the swing from being 80 through to the other side being 80 is a big swing. And you have to keep in your mind, if you're fascinated by politics, that it is not an 80 majority. It's 150 over Labour. They are fighting 150 seats. So it may not quite be the landslide everybody expects. But I confess, I haven't got a blooming clue what will happen in a year's time. It could be anything from wipeout to Keir Starmer governing with a small majority. And I'll give you another problem Keir Starmer has. He needs to win seats in Scotland. Now, undoubtedly, the Conservative Party will not win seats in Scotland. But there's a problem there. Although the SNP is having a hard time, I accept that, the Labour Party, the Liberal Party, and the Conservative Party all believe in a united kingdom. There is only one party that believes in independence for Scotland, and that's the SNP. And 30% of the Scottish people believe in independence for Scotland. So they start with a 30% advantage, even when things are going badly. So I wouldn't overrate how many seats he's going to win in Scotland. And he needs those seats to get a majority. So we're about to face a fascinating election, unquestionably. You are living through a period in politics, the like of which I have never seen. I mean, in my day, you had one prime minister, and they usually lasted 10 or 11 years. I've had 4 prime ministers. We've had 4 prime ministers in the last 4 years. My wife, as chairman of the Science Museum, has to report to the Secretary of State for Arts, Media and Sport. She's had 9 secretaries of state in 9 years. If you ran a company like that, you'd all be bankrupt. And by the way, ladies, pay attention, women, whatever you want to be called nowadays, Mary was the first woman ever to chair a national gallery or museum. I want to see who, because I was brought in by this numbskull. He went the wrong way, he turned the wrong direction, but luckily this lady knew where we were going, so I got here. So there's a terrific future in this country now, thank God. We're nearly equal. Equality has nearly arrived. The next leader of the Labour Party is tipped to be Mrs. Badenoch, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if she won it. She's in the lead at the moment. It's assuming we lose the election, the Prime Minister resigns, we'll have a leader of the opposition, and it's thought that Kimmy Badenoch will win it. And that'll be very interesting. Dare I say, let us assume everyone in this room is going to vote Socialist. Dare I say, we were the first party to have a Jewish Prime Minister, the first party to have a bachelor Prime Minister, the first party to have a woman Prime Minister, and now the first party to have an Indian Prime Minister. Wake up, Labour Party, you're meant to be the party of them. Yes, hello. So that's where I think we're going. On the career front, I will tell you, I'm 84 years old, so don't know if I'll be here next week. And I say that with some feeling. Stop chattering, you two. I say that with some feeling, because one of my dearest friends, Lord Cormac, who I've known all my life, died last week, and I saw him in the House of Lords having lunch 3 weeks ago. So I now live on a day-to-day basis. I now wonder how much longer I've got left, not least because there are 2 more books I want to write before I go. So I've been asking very kindly if I could live to 86, please, because I've got 2 more books I want to do. There's nothing more I want to do in politics, but there's 2 more books. And I'm a charity auctioneer. There's no reason why any one of you would know that. And I've raised 72 million in my lifetime as a charity auctioneer, and I'd like to raise 100 million before they take me away. So those are the only 2 things I want to do. So there we are. I will take questions on anything. I shall be fascinated to hear. I've been forthright and open with you, so I expect you to be forthright and open with me. So ask your questions seriously. Now let's end as we began. Hands up who wants to be a Member of Parliament. Come on, right up. I thought you did. Yeah, wake up. Do you think I missed you? Do you think I didn't see you? Get your hand up. Who else? Yes, good. There's one here. Yes. Good. It's good. Thank God. Because people say to me every day, why would anyone want to be a Member of Parliament? The salary is dreadful. They're rude to you the whole damn time. Even when you get something right, you get told off. So thank God we've still got people across our country, young people, who still want to give service. And who wants to be a best-selling author? 1, 2. You want to be both, you greedy little piglet. You're a greedy piglet. No, you want to be a Member of Parliament and a best-selling author. You'll find you two too. You want to be both.
Yes.
You're a couple of greedy little piglets here, Nick. Which would you rather be?
I could be both.
You could be both. Good God. Which would you rather be?
Both.
You're going to... Oh. Wow. So I'll go to questions now. And thank you very much for having me in the first place. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And the light won't get in my eyes. Who's first? Good, we can go home, Nick, with nobody. What? Who's first?
Well,
You're first. You tell me your name, what you're reading. Those are the 2 things I want to know. Name, no, he can wait. Name and what you're reading. Loud, you may have to say it out loud one day. Yes, we don't need that, do we? Waste of time.
I'm Harry, I'm doing...
Harry?
Yeah, chemical engineering.
You're doing what?
Chemical engineering.
Ah, my wife read chemistry.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I was wondering, are you still quick?
Am I still what?
Quick.
Quit.
Like fast?
Oh, how kind. I had the honour, I didn't mention it, your name was Harry.
Yeah.
Harry, kind enough, I ran for my country when I was at Oxford, Nobody remembers, because I'm so, you two just moved somewhere to the back. I ran for my country when I was at Oxford, and sometimes I think it was the most exciting thing I ever did in my life. But I wasn't quite good enough. I shared a room with a guy called Adrian Metcalf from Yorkshire, Magdalen in Yorkshire, great man, and I trained with him every day, and I got in on his coattails. He went on to get an Olympic silver medal, European record. I went on to scrape into the British team. So the answer is no, I can hardly jog now. I'm pathetic. I go to the gym twice a week. I walk 3 miles a day. And my diet is very careful, but it's a bit pathetic, I'm afraid. But you've got to do that, because one of the problems, I don't know I'm going this way, but I just say one of the problems I read in the paper this morning, a sentence that really frightened me in the Times this morning. More people are dying of obesity than are dying in the whole world, across the world, than are dying from starvation. That's happened in my lifetime. And of course it's killing the NHS. In England, when you tape it just down to England or Britain, obesity is the thing that the NHS just can't cope with. The numbers are too big. So your question was, am I still quick? No, I'm pathetic and slow. You a runner?
Yeah.
What distance?
Well, I used to do cross-country.
Cross-country?
Yeah.
6 miles, 5, 6
Yeah.
miles? And you still do? What do you mean you used to?
Well, now I just play sports instead.
Oh, good. But you're fit. You look fit.
Thanks.
Next. Trouble is here now. Are you wearing a Trinity top because you're a Trinity girl?
Yes, I am.
Well done, you. Well done. Great college.
Character from First Among
Speak up, because one day you may be addressing the masses.
Which character from First Among Equals do you think you align most with?
Well, you see, you've been kind enough to read First Among Equals. You know, they want to make, BBC wants to make a new television studio of it, and they've come, because it was 4 men,
Yes.
4 men trying to become Prime Minister. So they came to see me, and you've got to remember that's 40 years ago, and that was not so stupid. It was, and I felt more with the winner. I'm very left-wing in my own party. And Margaret Thatcher didn't think I was wet. She thought I was soaking. So there's no hope for me. But the answer to your question is they came to see me, and they now want, for the 4 people standing for Prime Minister, they want 1 black, 1 girl, so you can play both those parts, and they want 1 gay, and 1 just normal, boring white male. And that's the change. I mean, it's become, I don't know, speaking as an old man to you and listening to your views, I can handle a certain degree of having to move on, which is quite hard at my age. But I went to see in Regent's Park a production of Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. Now, the whole secret in A Tale of Two Cities, as you will all know, or the semi-educated among you will know, is that when the 2 men meet, they say, we're so alike we could change places. And that's the whole key to the great Dickens masterpiece. So one goes to his grave and the other one is saved. It's a brilliant and clever idea. Except in Regent's Park, they played it with a black man and a white man. The audience fell about laughing, and it closed in 3 days. What I think I'm getting at there is we've got to be sensible about this. Somehow, I don't know how, and make it all, because it's not my generation, it's you lot, and make it all work. So I look forward to you being Prime Minister. Next. Then you. No.
Hi,
I'm deaf, I apologise.
I'm Zishan.
You're what?
I'm Zishan.
Yes.
I'm studying philosophy.
Philosophy.
And since you said you're happy to talk about anything, I'm interested in your experience of prison
Yep.
and the criminal justice system. I want to know, 1, do you think you were treated fairly through the process in terms of any privilege you might have had or
No.
discrimination?
Same as everyone else, very fairly, wrote 3 books about it.
And what were the things you feel you most learnt through being in
How privileged I am. You're very, very, I mean, if you've got a good education, which you have, and you've got decent parents and a wonderful wife, in my case, you've got to start on everybody else. What I was aware of was how many didn't have a decent partner, didn't have a decent life, didn't have a... No, it taught me how lucky I am. Next was you.
Yeah, my name is Andre. I'm doing MBA.
Your name is?
Andre.
Andre.
Andre. Okay, yeah, the English version.
Oh, where are you from?
South Africa.
Ah, yes.
Okay.
What a mess that country's in. They could do. They could
do
do with you. They could do with them. Though I was told only yesterday that the ANC has not got the grip on the young it used to have.
Yeah,
which was an interesting statement.
No, there's a lot
Now
of
that
things
Mandela's out of everybody's mind and this new man is not so wonderful,
Yeah.
I'm told the young are actually thinking of other parties, which is good.
No, it's great of this change.
Yeah.
My question is, do you have a favorite book of the books you've written? What do you have a favorite?
Of mine,
Yeah.
I'm sentimental about Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less, which has now sold 27 million. I'm sentimental about it, but Cain and Abel changed my whole life. The critics like First Among Equals. Wake up, we're talking about you.
And the worst critic?
But I would say to all, how many of you actually read novels? How many of you read novels? Some people don't nowadays. They don't read novels. So I recommend to you, if I dare, and by the way, in passing, it comes into my mind, I had the honor of having tea with Nadim Godimer in Johannesburg many years ago, which was a great privilege. Wonderful, wonderful writer and a wonderful woman. Where was I drifting? Yes. Wake up, all of you. I'm going to give you my favorite book. The combination of great writing and great storytelling is very, very rare. There's a lot of great writers around, a lot, and there's a few great storytellers. That's much rarer. But when you get the combination of both, you get Stefan Zweig. Has anybody here even heard of Stefan Zweig? One there, good. Quite right. Now, Stefan Zweig was an Austrian who escaped from Austria in the late 1930s, went to the United States, thought Hitler was going to win the war, and committed suicide. He only wrote 2 novels. His non-fiction is brilliant. He wrote 2 novels and several what I would call novellas. So I commend to you, his great novel is called Beware of Pity, a true masterpiece. But for those of you who are skeptical, read a novella called Chess. It's absolutely... I'll give you the opening. I'll give you the opening of Beware of Pity. I came into the room. He was sitting on the other side of the table. Of course, we all knew who he was. National hero for so many years. I was very disappointed that I was sitting too far away to have a conversation with him. And as I left, he came up to me and I was putting on my coat. And he said, "May I walk home with you?" And I said, "Of course, sir. It would be a great honor." Everybody knows what you've achieved. "Oh, do they?" he said. "Then it's time I told someone the truth." One sentence. Having thrown away 15, he captures you and you can't not go on reading. You have to go on reading. It's time I told someone the truth. Masterpiece. Beware of Pity. But start on Chess if you have any doubts. Next. Are you going to be Prime Minister? Wait a moment, because Margaret Thatcher was asked that at your age. And she said famously, "Never tell anyone what you want." But I know, because I had the privilege of knowing her long before she held office, she wanted to be Chancellor of the Exchequer. And she never made it. And before you say anything, the rat who held your job 20 years ago said to me, Geoffrey, we're having a competition in Cambridge to raise money. What's it called, the thing you do once a year? One charity function thing you do once. And he said, we're going to raise. And one of the prizes is you can go to Geoffrey's house and meet Margaret Thatcher. I said, fine, I'll arrange it. I rang the Prime Minister. She said, yes, of course. And we arranged for one person to be chosen. The person who had raised the most money, Nick. You turned up out, not you. You turned up outside my front gate with 32 people. So I said to the Prime Minister and the head of the police, there's 32 people. 32. She took the 32 of you on and they loved it. It was one of the best hours I've ever seen. Her sitting in a chair and 32 young people from Cambridge. All who'd raised the most money. Yes. So she wanted to be Chancellor of the Exchequer. What do you want to be?
I will not tell you.
What? I'm deaf.
I will not tell you. I learned
I will not tell you. Go on then. What's your question?
So my name is Lily, and my question is like, from the person who wrote really a lot of amazing books to the person who going to write bestseller. So what advice could you give?
I face this once a day, certainly once a week. No, I'm trying to be honest about it. I was in India once. Any Indians here with us tonight? Great. They're my biggest fans. I've got 100 million out there. But I was in India and a lady came in the door. She locked the door. She was meant to be interviewing me. She sat down and said, will you please tell me the secret? I said, what? So what's the secret of storytelling? There must be a secret, I said. I said, no, there's no secret. It's just a God-given gift. I'm just very lucky. Could have been the violin. Could have been the paintbrush. I got lucky. No, she said, I won't tell anyone. So I said, no, I promise you it's a God-given gift. No, she said. So I said, I'll tell you what I do. I live in Grantchester, and at the bottom there's the River Cam. And every morning at 6 o'clock I go down to the river and I dig a hole, and in the hole is a story. She left without speaking to me, just walked straight out. The truth is, I don't know. I get up every morning at 6 o'clock and it just pours out. I'm very, very lucky. It's a privilege. I mean, if you watch a painter painting, or you see someone playing the piano, you know you couldn't do it. Why would it be any different for someone going once upon a time? I tell you when you'll find out, if that was your question. The public tell you. The public are very cruel. I know a lady not a lot older than you from Hong Kong who had $250,000 advance for her book. So she naturally thought, and she'd hit the big time. Nobody bought the book. The publishers believed it. She believed it, but the public didn't. And then's the other extreme with Harry Potter. Nobody believed in Harry Potter, but the young said, we believe in it. And the young took over. Good luck. Next. 2 there, 1 there. We're good. We'll come here. I'm deaf, I'm sorry.
I'm George.
George? He's got a microphone. We'll be all right.
I'm George. I wondered how you think the recent set of Conservative leaders compared to those of the past.
I'm so sorry.
The recent set of Conservative prime ministers.
It's no point in joking about this. I served under Margaret for 11 years and John for 7. That's 18 years for 2 prime ministers, and we've had 4 in the last 4 years. I don't understand it even. I can't get to grips with the fact that and they're even discussing removing Sunak now. I had lunch last week with Kwasi Kwarteng, and he said the whole place is toxic. They're all fighting each other. Starmer only has to sit there. He doesn't have to do anything. And he's very wisely not doing anything. It's the wisest thing to do. He could just let the Conservative Party tear themselves apart. I'm horrified by it. horrified. I mean, when we eventually lost to Neil Kinnock, we beat Neil Kinnock, when we eventually lost to Tony Blair, I thought that's fair enough. We've been in power for 17 years, shove off, sick of you, another go, let's have someone else. And I thought Tony Blair did a very good job, actually. I think he was not a bad Prime Minister at all. And after that, it all went wrong. You may say, if you're an historian or a politician reading politics, you may say, Geoffrey, everything stems to the vote on Europe. If Cameron had won the vote and we'd remained in Europe, he might still be Prime Minister now. That's when he decided to resign because he lost. He didn't think he was going to lose, but he resigned, and then it all went wrong. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Jen.
Jan? Jen.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, it's awful being deaf. You'll get to 84, you'll find out.
I'm halfway there.
Go on.
And I'm doing a PhD.
You're doing a PhD in what?
Law.
Law. Are you going to be a barrister or are you going to be a teacher?
Probably a barrister.
A barrister.
And a best-selling author, naturally.
And a best-selling author, along with my friend here, along with my...
And my question is, what are your next 2 books about? Can you give us a taster?
Say it again, sorry.
What are your next 2 books about? The 2 books that you want to write?
I've finished... Sometimes you get a stroke of luck. I was on a boat, Mary and I were on a boat going around the British Isles on a Viking liner, a Viking just been launched. And the chairman, Thors Hagen, asked Mary and myself to join him for dinner. And I sat next to this fellow who was clearly well educated and bright. Yes, you can leave if you're bored with us. No, you're not bored with us. And Thors, I sat next to this fellow who said, I hadn't ever read one of your books, Geoffrey, until I heard you speak on the ship. And then I immediately bought one, and I can tell you your next story. Well, I get this every day. I can tell you your next... Oh, you think, oh, God. And I'm stuck. The soup hasn't come yet. I'm actually stuck with this guy for 2 hours. So he tells me in 3 minutes how to steal the crown jewels. Well, can you think of a more stupid subject than how to steal the crown jewels? Problem was, he was a member of the royal household. And he told me something that was truly remarkable. I didn't sleep that night. I wrote it down. So that's the third to last. The one I've just finished is about Thomas Jefferson, because he evidently wrote a handwritten copy of the Declaration. And it's in England somewhere. It could have been destroyed. But it's in theory in England somewhere, in which case it's worth $100 million. So get out looking for it. And my last one in that series is going to be on the Olympic Games, on the 2012 London Olympics, because I have 2 policemen, one policeman, one policewoman, a chief superintendent, retired head of the murder squad, and a detective sergeant woman who was in the arts and antique shop squad, and they advised me, and the superintendent brought me the man who ran the security at the Olympics. Don't remember, it's 12 years ago, and he said, I can now tell you things nobody knows. And he told me things even Sebastian Coe didn't know. And 2 of them are totally unbelievable and clearly happened. And the public never found out. He'd never have told me at the time, but 12 years ago. So that will be the second to last book, and I'll be 85. And then I'm going to try and I'm going to try and write a new Cain and Abel, a new big novel to end on. And then, by then, you and whoever the other ones will be best-selling authors.
We'll invite you to our book signing.
Sorry. Oh, God, I wish
We'll invite you to our book signing.
Yes, I'll be honoured to come to your book signing. Honoured. I love going to book signings. They're such fun. No, I love them. They're sad events in some way, but I love them. Yes, we're back here. I do apologise.
That's fine. Hello, my name's Jamie. I'm
Jamie.
in Human, Social and Political Sciences.
Is that a three-part, is that a triple, is that a tripod?
There's
Is that a
actually-
tripod?
It's more confusing than that. It's about 4 different subjects.
Ow.
It's all the social sciences, really.
Ow. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm probably the last person that needs to remind you that you have had, over the course of your career, an incredible penchant for being involved in scandals of a kind. To what do you attribute that remarkable ability? And
To get out and go on living. Hard work. There is no substitute for hard work. And then, by the way, you mustn't look backwards either. You must never look back. You make a fool of yourself, and I do regularly, and you will in your lifetime. Believe me. You pick yourself up and go forward. Any more? Sir, one at the back and one here. We'll go to you.
Jeffrey, my name's John. I'm
John.
studying criminology here.
Criminology.
And I've got 2 questions. So one's a very quick.
Let them all hear them.
Yeah, so Krug and shepherd's pie, why did you have that combination? It's always, I don't know, fascinated me. And secondly, Cain and Abel, I genuinely do love and cherish. And it truly inspired me to
That's
come
very
here.
kind.
And I genuinely mean that.
Very kind.
So I'd like to know what inspired you for Cain and Abel as well.
Well, champagne and shepherd's pie was a joke, and Mary and I have stopped it now. We had our last party this year, the 40th and last party. Jack Profumo came to the first one. There's been a weird set of people over my lifetime who've been good friends. I can't explain Cain and Abel. I genuinely can't. I had this simple idea. 2 men born on the same day. One in a forest in Poland, one in a hospital that his father had built in Boston. They could not be more different. They meet once in their life, and it changes their whole lives. Pretty simple. I mean, what did that take? 1 minute? Pretty simple. And 560 pages later. And I still don't believe it. You know, when I handed it in, I'm going to answer that question very accurately. When I handed it in the United States, what an agent does is try and get you the best sum of money they can and the best deal they possibly can. Of course, that's their job. And they handed it in and they said, I'm not going to sell this book, I'm going to auction it. So I said, what does that mean? So we give it to the 17 publishing houses in the United States, and they're allowed to read it. They get 1 week, and then on the Monday afterwards, they bid for it. And the bidding will start at 9 o'clock in the morning and finished at 3 o'clock the next morning. And I guess we knew then. I didn't, actually. The fact that everybody had joined in, I was still nervous. I was still worried. And then they paid such a vast sum of money. I was able to buy my beautiful home in Cambridge. Mary was able to stop feeding me. And it did change my whole life. What inspired me? It's partly your question, really. Partly goes back to your question. You can't know the answer to that. You'd like to think you could sit down and say, I know where things went right, I know where things went wrong, I could make an improvement on that. It doesn't work like that. Life is very strange. Very strange. But, so what inspired me, I always want to win, and that may go back to the athletics days. It's possible that being a runner gets into you and you want to be first. Especially as a runner, I was never first. So it may be that was part of it. But a lot of people say to me now, John, you're 84. You've got 3 beautiful homes. You've got a wonderful life. Why do you bother? Why is my wife with the Prime Minister today? To be offered another unpaid job. Because that's what she wants to do. And there'll be people in this room who pack up at 65 and call it a day. And there'll be others, they'll drop. still working. I'm afraid if I could do anything about it, I would, but I can't. I'm a nutcase. I'm a complete bonkers nutcase. Where did we go next? Sir. Oh, gosh.
I'll try my best. So, my name's Oscar and I'm reading history.
Yes.
So as a historian, I've read a lot about parties which can just disappear or disappear in terms of their significance, whether that's the Liberal Party or even the Whigs.
Yeah.
What do you think about the continuing role of the Tory party going into the future? Do you think they can continue to be an electoral force? And in terms of wanting to be a future Prime Minister, should I join them or not?
Well, I mean, there are so many extremes in the next election, but I would say to you, Canada, they went to 2 seats. The governing party, in one election, went to 2 seats. And of course, that's whispered in the ears of some people that we're going to have the most incredible ever swing, and the Conservatives will be wiped out. It's possible. I think it unlikely.
In a permanent sense?
On a permanent basis.
In a way, just cease to be a force. They're taken by a different party.
The problem is, you see, you're living in today. I don't know how much the Israeli-Palestine problems are going to be a big deal at the next election, because I've never faced that in an election. I've faced unemployment, I've faced not enough houses, I've faced inflation, I've faced taxation, but I've never on the doorstep had someone say, you're anti-Israel or you're anti-Palestine, that's the way I'm going to vote. This for me is the first time ever. So I can't, in all honesty, I cannot tell you what will be the big issue. I mean, they keep telling me it's immigration. But yesterday's result should not be kicked to one side that quickly. It shook me. What shook me is the Labour Party coming 5th with 2,400 votes. Admittedly, they'd expelled the candidate. But there was an independent. I'm still trying to find out this morning when I got half of it explained to me, how an independent came 2nd, who didn't seem to have any party at all, and not many views. So he must have either been very popular in the constituency, but if you look up the figures tonight, that's the one I can't explain. And Reform only getting 1,400 shook me. I thought they'd get 7,000 or 8,000. Because I've been living in the last month being told that Reform will finish the Conservative Party. They'll get no seats, but they'll take 7,000 or 8,000 away in key seats, and we'll lose them to Labour. A lot of politicians are coming out this morning saying it's a one-off by-election, it won't matter at the general election. Fine. That just may not be true. And you are going to live through, when you're 84 and standing giving this speech, you'll say, you'll never believe the things that have happened in my lifetime. And then you will say, when someone says to you, what do you think will happen next? You'll say, well, it had never crossed my mind that Martians coming down on Earth would be given a vote. Because you can't know what's going to happen next. I have a millimetre of fear the Conservatives are going to be wiped out. But it's only a millimetre. Wiped out. And it's not the fault of Sunak, who I think is a thoroughly decent man, and clearly a very well-educated man, a scholar at Winchester, head of the business school at Harvard. We're dealing with a very clever guy. I don't know him because I've never worked with him, but he comes over to me in the times I've met him and his wife, 2 thoroughly nice people. That isn't going to count for much at the next election. 3 more and we can go home. Hello.
So,
shout up, speak up. I thought you were going to ask some questions. You weren't. That's what you told me when we came in.
Thanks for coming to the Union. So my question is, you said that when you were younger,
if I may.
you wished that you wanted to be Prime Minister. Now, if you could go back and if you were elected as Prime Minister, what would you do differently to
When did I become Prime Minister? No, I can't tell you unless you tell me when I became Prime Minister.
Roughly around when Margaret Thatcher got elected Prime Minister.
You mean if I'd followed Margaret?
Yes.
God help the person who followed Margaret. I'm a middle-of-the-road Conservative. I'm left of centre, middle of the road. The only thing that stops me being a member of the Labour Party is I 100% believe in free enterprise. It's quite tricky to be a member of the Labour Party if you 100% believe in free enterprise and believe in the end that business is not a crime. Business is how you employ people, and if you don't employ people, your nation falls down. My party doesn't seem to get that message across. I'd taken it whenever it had been offered to me, to be honest. If someone had come up and said, Geoffrey, yes, we want you for Prime Minister, I'd have taken it. But by God, it would have been tricky in the last 3 years. If someone becomes, as Sunak did, Prime Minister a year ago, the finances are all a mess. By the way, they're all a mess in Germany, Italy, France. We've got a guy back there who's doing the social thing. You'll know that it's not just England. The whole of Europe's in financial trouble at the moment. And I don't know the answer, because if you're going to have a defence budget of any size, which would appear to be necessary with Putin the way he is, so my point is, anybody who comes in as Prime Minister haven't got much leeway to move. The budget's on Wednesday. I don't know what he's going to do. But he hasn't got much, and he's got an election 9 months away. He'll try and do something. Here's what I think will happen. He'll do something, and it'll have absolutely no effect at all. The British people have made up their mind, I think. But yes, if you're offering me the job, I'll take it. One more and I'm going home. I promised my wife I would be at an art gallery. Yeah, it's going to be your president. He's speaking at last. Are you going to be president?
Maybe.
Maybe. We love her. Last question.
Yes, and nomination.
One there, and then you.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Jonah. I'm first year studying English.
Louder so they can all hear it.
Hello, I'm a first year English student called Jonah.
First year, you're a freshman?
Freshman, yeah.
Great.
Yeah. My question is, my question is, did you ever speak to Ringo Starr?
Yes.
He declared that Geoffrey Archer's the kind of bloke who would bustle up your piss and sell it.
Yes, God bless him. When I was at Oxford, I invited the Beatles to spend the day with us and raise money for Oxfam. And all four of them came. It was very, I mean, two of them are older than me and two of them are younger. So they came down to Oxford, we had dinner at Brasenose, and they raised £1 million in 2 weeks. Think about that, that's 1963, they raised £1 million. And I have to tell you here and now, I did not know how big they were going to be. It would be foolish of me. You can all these years later. I'm not going to say which, two were incredibly bright. Two could have got first-class honours degrees at Oxford. And the one wasn't particularly bright, and one was fine. But two, I thought, spending an evening with them. I mean, I'm married to a double first. I know a good brain when I see one. And two of them were very bright. I look back on it now and think, these weren't four ordinary men. They were not just singers. They were not just writers. They had something extra as well. President.
So kind of merging the categories of sort of politics and books.
What?
Merging the categories of sort of politics and books. Who from sort of your time in politics do you think provided the most sort of interesting sort of source of character or inspiration?
Lawyers, put your hands up. One, only one. 2, 3. I was very lucky to meet a man called Gilbert Gray. I think he became whatever is called treasurer of Lincoln's Inn, whatever is the very, very great. And he was a murder barrister. and he was one of the greatest speakers in England, and I heard him speak and invited him to dinner. He gave me more stories over, he's no longer with us, sadly. He gave me more stories over 30, most of them short stories. I'll give you an example. I just give you an example of one. He said, I've had a bad day, Geoffrey. I said, what do you mean you've had a bad day? He said, I had to go down to Pentonville and see 2 murderers. I said, fine. He said, I went into the first cell and I said, how are you going to plead? And he said, not guilty, Mr. Gray, not guilty. And I said, wait a moment, you chopped your wife into little pieces and then you sent the little pieces to all her relations. Don't you think that's going to be quite tricky for me when I get in court if you want to plead not guilty? And he said, no, Mr. Gray, that's the man next door, not me. And he was always giving me stories like that. And sometimes they don't make a whole story. Sometimes it's background stuff. And it gets into a book. You say something, you say something, you say something, and it gets into a book. And you've got a young character saying something, and you reproduce it. Why not? You've just heard it. So that's quite common for me, to reproduce, to find something said that's of interest, particularly with the young. Because with the young, I can say something and try and sound as if I've got a bloody clue what the next generation are thinking. It's the only reason I come to functions like this, all over because I love what comes out of it. I get much more out of this than you do, by the way, because I go away with lots of ideas and things, and that's super. Let me end by wishing all of you success in whatever career you decide to go. Really, to answer this question here, don't let anything get you down, because there will be things that get you down. And believe it or not, you'll make mistakes. What you do is you dust yourself down and say, I'm a bloody fool, and you get on with it. And where I've been particularly lucky is being married to a remarkable woman for the past 57 years. So having someone with you of that caliber, in every sense of the word, could be the difference. So I'm very lucky there. So I wish every single one of you success in what you want to do. And here's the final piece of advice. Don't be frightened to go in another direction. If someone says, oh, but I thought I was going to be a barrister, I thought I was going to be a doctor, don't be frightened to realize 5 or 6 years in, that wasn't quite right for you. I'm actually going to be a bus conductor. Otherwise you'll have a very unhappy life if you just go on doing what everyone thought you were going to do. Because there are still things I'd love to do. I'd love to be a pianist, but never will be. So all of us have things we want to do, and all of us can see a road. I think what I'm trying to say is, don't be frightened if your parents see that road and you don't. Nothing wrong with that. Picasso discovered at the age of 8. He was one of the world's greatest painters. Mozart discovered at the age of 4. You can't tell what talent you have. So remember what Proust said on this. We all end up doing the thing we're second best at. Think about it. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
No, my pleasure.
Well, and on that note, we're going to...
We'll say goodbye.
Yes.
Because my wife is sitting waiting for me.
Perfect.
But you're going to tell me how to get there.
Yes, indeed. Don't worry.
St. John's.
Thank you everyone for coming today. Can we have one last round of applause?